What's up, short attention span history nerds? I'm Michael Perry, and you're watching 10 Minute History. Some of the best scenes in movies are the ones that aren't even in the script, and there are plenty of them in Lord of the Rings movies. Few film franchises are as expansive and vast as Peter Jackson's adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's classic books. So there's plenty of behind the scenes trivia, and trivia only the readers of Tolkien will know as well. What cool facts should you know about Lord of the Rings? Let's find out. Now, I'm not going to include this in the list, but I found it very fascinating about the determination and drive of Tolkien. He never learned how to properly type, so Tolkien pounded out the books on a manual typewriter, mind you, with only his index fingers. In my eyes, that's an amazing feat considering the content of his books. Now, with that freebie aside, let's delve into the facts of Lord of the Rings that just might shock you. Arwen is Aragorn's cousin. 63 times removed, Aragorn is a descendant of Elros, who was Elrond's brother. Elrond and Elros were part of a race called half-elves, which gave them the power to choose between elven or human lives. Elros picked the life of a mortal man because, well, he's a badass, while Elrond set up shop in Rivendell as a glowy immortal elf. That's why Aragorn got to live way longer than normal men. It's also why Elrond let him move in with the elves and have a super emo relationship with his daughter. Thranduil's dad was the elf responsible for abandoning Dol Guldur before Sauron moved in. Maybe that's why Thranduil is such a douche. It's not. They abandoned it because they were having territorial disputes with Lorien and Moria. Honestly, a lot of the Similarian is about crappy things that the elves did to each other. So I don't buy into the myth that they are the superior species. Google Kingslain Similarian. They killed each other a lot. Legolas might not actually have had Orlando Bloom's luscious long blonde locks. We do know his dad Thranduil had golden hair, as did most of the elves described throughout the books, beside Elrond's family. But Tolkien never actually described Legolas's appearance in detail. Why would he tell us what every other elf looked like, but not our main woodland-born archer? There's only one conclusion I've decided to draw from this. Legolas was secretly a bald elf in the book. Sorry, there's nothing you can say that's going to convince me otherwise. The three elven rings, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria, hold on. I gotta start locking my studio at night. The Nina, Narya, and Celia were not forged by Sauron, but by an elf lord named Celebrimbor. He also helped Sauron with the other rings of power, except for the one. Celebrimbor thought to himself, I don't really trust this Sauron guy, so I'll help him with the rings for the dwarves and men, but the rings for my people will be forged secretly. If, like me, you've wondered, how is it that this eye thingy controls the ring wraiths completely, but has no idea that Elrond and Galadriel are mind communicating about the location of the one thing it's looking for, Tolkien actually invented an answer for you. Celebrimbor also designed the door to the mines of Moria. The gate showcases the stars of the 7 stars of Fëanor, and if you Google the Kingslayer thing, as I mentioned earlier, you would know that they murdered a bunch of elves. Fëanor was an important elf who created the 3 Silmarils and made the Plantier. And it was nice that Peter Jackson kept the door in the movie. Durin's Bane the Balrog, who took the epic fall with Gandalf in the Fellowship, probably had wings. At least according to the book. The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in the other hand, Glamdring gleamed cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like 2 vast wings. It raised the whip, and the throng whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. See? Possibly wings. Now he possibly forgot to use them. Besides not being the brightest, he was also not the scariest of his kin either. There was a lord of the Balrogs named Gothmog who commanded a brutal army of Balrogs, orcs, and dragons in the Similarian for an evil dude named Morgoth. The 5 wizards are part of a race called Maiar, who can change forms. Now this means Gandalf doesn't always look like Ian McKellen. Sauron is not the very most evil of Middle-earth. He was once a vassal of Morgoth, who was one of the Ainur. Ainur means holy ones in Quenya, which is one of the elven languages that Tolkien made up. Similarian is the Elvish spoken commonly in the movie and the books. Quenya is High Elvish and based off Finnish, whereas Similarian is based off Welsh. Morgoth is basically Satan. The Valar, a subset of Ainur who have entered the physical world, actually sent Gandalf and the other wizards to Middle-earth to protect it from Sauron, who was carrying out Morgoth's evil agenda. Shelluv is not just any spider. She is the daughter of Ungolin, a weird spider thing that predates time like Tom Bombadil, but that is 1, evil, and 2, chooses to take the form of a spider, which I don't get. Ungoliant spent a lot of time flitting about with Morgoth. All the large spiders in Middle-earth are descendants from her because she would have mated with regular spiders and then eaten her offspring. Disappointingly, how and why a spider mating works is not explained in detail. The Similarian is a pretty tricksy text. Since his son Christopher compiled the Similarian posthumously, the information it contains sometimes differs from what's found elsewhere in Tolkien lore. For example, there are multiple accounts of the origins of orcs. This means that whatever you or I write or say about the Similarian, our fellow nerds will probably argue that it's incorrect. Here's an honorable mention. Frodo originally straight out murdered Gollum. The final confrontation between Frodo and Gollum in The Return of the Kings was originally going to end with Frodo pushing Gollum off the ledge into Mount Doom, straight out murdering him. Jackson admitted, but at the time we were okay because we felt that's what everyone wanted Frodo to do, was to kill Gollum. But of course it was very un-Tolkien because it flew in the face of everything that he wanted his heroes to be. Years later the scene was reshot and it ended up in the film. Frodo straight up murdering Gollum. So those are the nerdiest facts I could find on Lord of the Rings. I didn't want to compile a list that every other channel has already covered. This one was for the straight up unapologetic LOTR nerds. Now, if you have a nerdier fact that I didn't cover, leave it in the comment section below. If you like short history stories of various subjects, consider subscribing to 10-Minute History. If you like this one, please give it a thumbs up. Take a look at my other videos as well. If you have a subject that you'd like me to cover, please put it in the comment section below. Until next time. Few film franchises. There's only one